Amy stared out the window as her thoughts drifted back to the time when she had been married for 3 long months to Tommy Longhorn. It had been a terrible time, filled with loneliness and isolation, but a time that she now looks back with longing. Since they returned from their honeymoon, her husband Tommy had worked literally from dawn to dusk at his cubicle at Holstein Brothers. Work, eat, sleep. He was no fun, she thought. So Amy decided that she needs one last fling before she truly commits to her marriage. So at the local cafe, she meets a young man, Sasha Jones. He's married and lonely just like me, she thinks. So they move towards a motel room, but on the way, he asks her to stop at his bank so that he can get some money out and they can pay cash for the room instead of either one of them using their credit cards. She thinks this is a good idea, so she agrees to stop. At the motel, the young man does a bang-up job, and Amy is pleased that this one last fling has been so rewarding and satisfying. When there is a knock on the door, "Housekeeping!" The police burst in and arrest the couple for bank robbery. Amy is freaked by this. It can't be happening. Her mother is the only one who stands by her, but her mother doesn't have the do-re-mi to bail her out. So Amy is stuck in jail awaiting trial. "It's horrible, Ma," she begs her mother to get her the cash for the bail. "I can't be in here one more day. Ma, please, you gotta do something." But there is nothing the mother can do. The young man testifies against Amy in order to get a reduced sentence for himself. He says that Amy planned it all. It was her idea. He was an innocent. Damn, he's good, she thinks. I'd believe him. So she accepts a plea deal of 5 years. He gets 20 and is gone from her life. Due to overcrowding, she gets out after 2 years and moves back in with her mother. She's Amy Atkins again, and she just wants to put the past behind her. But with a record, that's going to be tough. So she gets a job waitressing alongside her mother at the Hidden Beach pub. Woo! Everybody having fun, all these tourists. So to score extra money and to keep life interesting, Amy begins working with a man named Alex to deal drugs out of the club. A young couple, the Bays, Bob and Alice, are here for a 1-week vacation to celebrate their 1-year anniversary. They're good customers for 2, maybe 3 nights running, buying a lot of coke. So when the club closes for the night, they hook up with Alex and Amy for an all-nighter. When Alex runs out of coke to sell them, they all drive back to his dealer's place, the Source, to resupply. When Alex goes into the house, Bob and Alice pull out guns and force Amy into the trunk of her mother's car. She hears Bob say, "You stay in the car," to Alice, and the door opens and closes. So she does not know if Alice is still in the car with her or not. After 5 minutes or so, she hears a bang, bang, pause. Then another minute passes and she hears them getting back into the car. She knows her life won't be worth 2 cents if she doesn't get out of that car. So she feels around in the dark and finds an emergency release for the trunk. And when it felt like they were slowing down, Amy pulled the release and leapt out of the running car, hitting the ground hard and rolling. They hit the brakes and jumped out and started shooting. And as she was running into the woods, she caught one in the shoulder. 100 feet in, she climbed under some bushes and waited out the night. In the morning, when she emerged from the woods, a car passed by, and they saw her waving. But they didn't stop. They called the cops. So she told the cops everything. But because the young couple, soon after they had shot her, had gotten into a wild police chase and drove off of Dead Man's Curve to their deaths, she was the only one left to charge in this robbery gone wrong. "We've got to charge somebody," the cop said. "The mom demands justice." So they charged her with the deaths not only of Alex and his dealer, but also of the Bays, whose real name had been the Izaderos. Amy's lawyer was highly confident that she would get off, but he was wrong, and she was sentenced to 4 life sentences. This new prison was not like the old prison, and with 4 life sentences, Amy soon had a reputation as someone who had nothing left to lose. So she gained a lot of power and influence within the yard, and she liked it at first, but as she saw people come and go, do their time, then move on, while she stood still, not going anywhere, like a perpetual high school, she thought, she began to realize that it was that one last fling that had started it all. Oh, how she wished she could go back and make a better decision and just put up with the loneliness and isolation. She daydreamed about what her life would be like today if she had just put up with it. And more as the days passed, that is why Amy constantly daydreamed about going back and changing the past, fixing it, followed by a whole different life. It was where all her focus on undoing that one mistake so that she could then live her dream life. But then she had a breakthrough when she realized that she only has power over decisions going forward. Once a decision is made, it can never be unmade. She has no power over past decisions. They can never be undone. So the next time her mother visited her, Amy told her to stop visiting. You talk like that old life is still alive, Ma. I don't care what everybody else is up to. That life is dead to me. Then I won't talk about that. But please, Amy, I'm suffering too. No, Ma, you have got to let me go. It is taking too much out of me. I will miss you. I will miss the cash you send, but I won't miss the emotional cliff that I fall off of after every visit. But you were my little girl. I need her back. I'm sorry, Ma, but she's dead, Amy said as she walked away. Then when Amy was 40, her breasts were very painful. She put up with it for as long as she could. Then she got it looked at, and they discovered that she had breast cancer. But instead of spending the money to treat her breast cancer, after a long delay filled with promises and excuses, the prison gave her compassionate release, and she was moved to a hospice. There was a young woman at the hospital, Janice Watchmaker, who played guitar and dreamed of being a star. She was half Amy's age, but they became very close. After a beautiful summer together, Janice took a turn for the worse. Janice left Amy her guitar, even though she told her parents, the watchmakers, that she was leaving it to the hospice. After the loss of Janice, Amy's days were filled with loneliness and isolation. As she would sit at the window and stare out at the clouds. And every night after she lost Janice, Amy slept with that guitar, because it reminded her of Janice as she tried to hold on to something real in her life. 6 weeks later, Amy passed on. It was as if she had wilted after the loss of her friend, or was it just the accumulation of grief and disappointment that Amy could no longer hold back, that burst through the dam that was that had been holding it back and overwhelmed her. Amy was buried on Christmas Eve in Potter's Field by the city of New York, and her mother was the only one who attended the funeral, placing a stone upon the grave, then walking away with the memories of happier days, once again filling her thoughts.